Thank you. Thank you, Julie, and welcome to all of you. What I thought I would try to do in the few minutes that we have is sort of set the conditions for what we hope that we can achieve together, because we're all educators, we're all committed to the same thing, we're all in the business that we're in because we really believe in young people, we believe in the next generation, we believe in the success of our state and our country. We believe that educational development and educational attainment is a critical step in the success of everything else that we do. If we want better social outcomes, if we want better economic outcomes, if we want better life outcomes, life choice outcomes, you know this because we're all in the same business. So what I hope to be able to do today is say just a little bit about ASU and what we've taken on as our mission and how we're working, talk a little bit about what's enabled us to do that, and then lay the foundation for the fact that, and I'll say these things and you'll believe that I'm crazy after I say this, we have found ways to beat the math bugaboo, to beat the science bugaboo forever. Done. Finished. There's no reason now today that any kid can't master college algebra. I mean any kid. There's no reason that any kid can't master, I mean up to college algebra, up to college biology. Because we have found resources, the team, the asset, the partners, the technology tools and other assets, millions and millions of dollars that we've invested, that, and then years of deployment both in the university and outside the university through our various projects. And I'm just using this as one example where we now have found the secret sauce of the combination of teachers, the combination of technologies, and the combination of other assets that allow us to be able to say, and even have set the goal for the university, that we're looking for totally undifferentiated graduation outcomes regardless of family circumstance. Family circumstance is no longer the predictive indicator. The predictive indicator now is the quality of the team assisted by technology and other tools that are creating new kinds of highly individualized and highly personalized learning environments inside the community of a school, inside the community of a learning environment to make all these things happen. Now, you're going to say, okay, just some big overpaid university administrator blowhard up there. No. So here's what we've been able to do by taking a completely differentiated approach to the way that we think about things. So we're producing 3 times as many graduates as we did before this process. We doubled the 4-year graduation rate. Our retention rate is just a hair under those universities that retention is who makes it from the first year to the second year. Just a hair under the universities that admit only A students from high school. If you read about the great universities in the United States, there are universities that only admit A students, and some of them admit only A+ students. I was at one of those universities as a faculty member and one of the provosts. We admitted only students with A+ averages from high school. Columbia University, period. Yeah, it's a little wonder anybody dropped out. They didn't even need to go to college. And so we doubled our 4-year graduation rate, took our retention rate to just under 90%, lowered the cost to the state to produce a degree by 75%, tripled the number of graduates, expanded the number of learners that we have by a factor of 7. Think of that as people in the community learning from the institution, not as formal degree-seeking students, a factor of 7. 3 times the graduates, 5 times the research, double the 4-year graduation rate, 75% reduction in the cost to the state to produce a degree, retention rates at the levels of A student-only universities, doubling that 4-year graduation rate. Our faculty is the same size. Our student body, for the first time in our history, is actually representative of the total socioeconomic diversity of the state. Never was before, ever. Socioeconomic diversity means we have 20% of our student body that are at or below the poverty line, which is the state percentage. The majority of our first-year students, also known as freshmen in old parlance, from Arizona, 8,500 are not white. In 1987, the student body here was 99% white. 2% of the student body came from the lower half of family incomes in 1987. 2%. 50% comes from the lower half of family incomes now. 50%. So these achievements of graduation rate enhancement, these achievements of retention enhancement, these achievements of 98% employment or graduate school within a year of graduation, with the same economic outcomes as the University of Texas, the University of California at Los Angeles, the University of Washington, same economic outcomes for our graduates with a lot more diversity. Same as Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has 13% of its in-state students eligible for Pell Grants. We have 42% of our in-state students eligible for Pell Grants. But we get the same economic outcome. That tells us that these techniques of innovation, this drive towards change, this drive towards attracting technology to the institution and using this technology to help the institution to be successful, works. And we wouldn't be having this meeting today hoping to find ways to link up with you unless we knew it worked. Because then it would just be, as they say in a negative parlance, an academic discussion. I'm not interested in academic discussions. I'm interested in changing numbers, changing outcomes, graduating every kid from high school. And so what I want to do is I want to walk you through a little bit about us so you can get a sense of what's involved in making some of these changes, and then talk about then how we might work together. Now, on the side, by the way, we started a meeting 10 years ago called the ASU GSV Educational Technology Summit. We started it with 50 people in Scottsdale. It'll meet this April with 5,000 people in San Diego. 10 years we've been running this meeting. And the reason that we ran this meeting and that we set this meeting up was so that we could gather every new technology company that existed and every venture capital company standing behind them and every big technology company also working in educational space, and we could listen to them and sort out their technologies. Well, we absorbed 300 of their technologies into ASU and then blended those 300 technologies into what we needed them for, not what they thought they needed to be used for, but what we thought they needed to be used for. And from that, then, we have changed everything. We used to have a 50% non-mastery level of entry-level college math at the university. So kids were coming from high schools everywhere. They maybe had high grades from their math courses. They still weren't ready for college-level math. Okay. What do you do about that? Well, you got to change everything. We did away with the notion of remedial. What an insult. Remedial. We have no remedial anything. What we have are personalized. So we changed the way that people learn. I'm picking this one track, math. Freshman math, just freshman math in one course. We offer 25,000 separate courses at ASU. One course, freshman math, $4 million to offer that course. 50% mastery, meaning 50% of the people that took the course didn't master the subject so that they could move on with the rest of their degree program. We're not talking about math majors. We're talking about any major. If you don't have this fundamental conceptualization of math, you can't be a college graduate because you can't understand probability. You can't understand statistics. You can't understand solving for an unknown. You can't understand three-dimensional thinking. Doesn't mean you have to do calculus, but you can't understand it. And we were getting 50% of non-mastery. We're now getting 90% mastery. Of the 50% that didn't master, meaning a C or below, or a lack of fundamental understanding, half of them dropped out of the university. Retention. Fully capable potential college graduates dropping out of the university over one course. What a waste. What a waste of talent, what a waste of energy, what a waste of resources. So how many knows what Pell Grants are? Everybody knows what those are? U.S. government's unbelievably generous, spending $750 billion on Pell Grants in the last 40 years. More than half the people that took the grants have no degree. No certificate and no degree, including an associate's degree. They have no degree. They have nothing. If you have no degree but took courses in college but no degree, your economic benefit over your lifetime is 5% above a high school diploma. You have no benefit for having gone to college at all. So we've really gone after and attacked this as a key way of rethinking how we think. So I want to talk about collaboration. What we're interested in is collaboration. How do we collaborate with you? How do we be the teachers' college that we originated as? How do we work with you in teaching? How do we work together in enhancing teaching? How do we work together in collaborative modes in talking about enhancing educational outcomes? Now, why do we do this? We do this because this is now the charter of this institution. We didn't have a charter before. We were just a generic public school. We might as well have been Public School 9. A generic state university, GSU 8. There is the University of Paris 6. There's actually these places. University of Paris 4. Imagine all the thrill by watching 4 play 6 in football. And by the way, they have horrific graduation rates and horrific outcomes at those schools because of their genericness. So we decided not to be generic, but to take on these 3 elements as our charter. First, that we would not allow ourselves to be a university measured by who we exclude as the way that we become famous. So you can become really famous by getting lots of applicants and sending most of them packing. If you can send 95% of your applicants packing, you're famous. You're good. I'm like, good? You're like worthless at the social scale. So can you then become famous? That is, you can do what you need to do by being inclusive and then measuring the success of your students as your principal reason for existence. And then secondly, this is a very intensive research university. We have 30,000 people working on research projects, including our students, that is, funded research projects, including students, 30,000 people, 11,000 projects, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of funders, hundreds of millions of dollars of projects. And if all those projects just help other academics, like, okay, pack it in. We also then have to do research and discovery of public value, and to make it of public value means you have to know how to translate it. And then lastly, and very importantly, are we actually responsible for the outcomes of our community? If K-12 is underperforming in some way or some form, if the economy is underperforming in some way or some form, if we're not adapting to changes, if we're not taking care of water issues and sustainability issues and environmental issues and cleaning the air and coming up with new ways to do things, then what good are you? So this now is the fundamental charter of this institution. And we have very significant buy-in by our faculty and our staff. We have 4,600 faculty members and 25,000 support staff, just to put this into perspective. We have 75,000 students on campus from 140 countries. And we have 50,000 degree-seeking students online in 250 degree programs. And we have hundreds of thousands of other learners, including high school learners, attached to us in different ways also. Just trying to give you a sense of the scale of the institution and the mission that we're advancing. We have design imperatives. These are things that we wish, if this is why we exist, this is what we want to be. We want to work to help transform society. We want to be Arizona, leverage our place. We want to be embedded in Arizona, completely committed to Arizona, everything Arizona, cultural, physical, environmental, everything. We want to do use-inspired, problem-solving research. On the right, we want to fuse intellectual disciplines together. We don't even think that the notion of disciplines is anything at all what all of us were trained. They're just social constructs that help us organize knowledge and advance knowledge. Somehow we've turned them into religions. Math is a religion. Chemistry is a religion. Economics is a religion. It's none of those things. It's a mechanism to organize knowledge. And so we've worked heavily to create knowledge by transcending academic disciplines, which has then allowed us to increase our research funding by a factor of 5, not 5%, 500% higher levels of investment in the institution. $650 million a year. We have a $3.5 billion operating budget. $650 million of that comes from research support. Educational attainment, we're on the low end in educational attainment. Here's something that I can say with complete and total certainty. Those with low levels of educational attainment will be the least prepared for all social, technological, and economic changes of the future, period. Period. That's very easy for me to say. I could give you mountains of justification and data and analysis and so forth, and if you don't believe that, then you need to find a way to get yourself educated. Because educational attainment will be like it's never been before. It's been unbelievably powerful for the last 120 years, since 1900. Before there were high schools, before we thought everybody needed to know how to read. Most of us were, none of us were alive then, so we don't know that that's the way people used to think. And then they said, well, everybody needs to go to high school. Everybody at least needs to know how to read. They need this, they need this, they need this. But what they didn't say is that continuum never stops. It just keeps moving forward as we expand and transform the nature of the complexity of our society. This is an interesting chart. So this is every job in Arizona scaled to the number of people in the job. So that right there, that's the number of retail salespersons working in the Arizona economy. No formal education is required necessarily to get the job as a retail salesperson. These are lawyers right here, just to give you some sense right there. And so that's how many lawyers there are in the Arizona economy. The red jobs, likely to be replaced by machines. The green jobs, less likely to be replaced by machines. Now you can look at this and say, well, how do you know this? There's people smarter than any of us in this room that spend their whole life studying these things. You can believe they're going to be half right, and it's still a monumental impact. So this basically says that we got trouble in River City. If you remember the song and the movie and the play. Right here in River City. We got a lot of red. This is one of the reddest states, and I don't mean politically. This is red because we have a lot of jobs vulnerable to replacement by automation and machines. Okay. That means then that we better find a way to drive our economy to a highly adaptive set of people that live here who are educated in a way where they're highly adaptive. So that if their job gets replaced, okay, they pick up this, they pick up that, they move on to something else. You drive the economy forward. It turns out, by the way, that our reliance on these easily replaceable jobs also means that those are largely low-wage jobs, which means, and this will, you want this to kind of sink in slowly, Arizona's economy has gone from 90% of the per capita GDP for 50 years until the year 2000. So 1950 to 2000, we were between the 90th percentile and the 100th percentile of the average per capita GDP. If the 100th percentile means you're at the US average of per capita GDP, that just means the size of the economy divided by the number of people in the economy. Well, now we're at the 75th percentile. Fastest drop of any state. Well, that ought to have your attention. And there's lots of reasons for that. Who comes here, and you come at the end of your life, you're not spending as much money, and other folks and all kinds of other things. But it tells you that we have a big problem. That is, we're not adaptable to the economy that's evolving in the country right now because we're falling further and further behind. Now again, you guys in middle schools and high schools might not believe this. These are even low numbers, meaning the jobs don't even exist. Gene editor. My sister is a nurse oncologist social worker who gives advice to people over the internet working from home, one of my sisters, on how to deal with the payments for their genetic therapies for their stage 4 cancer treatments. She couldn't even have conceived that job when she entered nursing school and her undergraduate degree years ago. And she's had to re-educate herself over and over and over and over and over and over to be able to do that job, which is a stay-at-home, high-wage, 6-figure job. This just tells you that we have uneven attainment. So the different colors there are different ethnic groups in Arizona. And you look at their level of educational attainment. And so these lines should be the same. There should be no differential outcome as a function of a person's family income or ethnicity, period. Now you say that's impossible. It's not impossible. I have mountains of evidence that tells you that it's not impossible. I have the 100% graduation rate at our charter schools. I've got the changes in the performance of the students coming to us from all of the families that come to ASU. And we have nearly equal attainment. But you can't have this kind of unevenness if you expect the economy to ultimately work. And in Arizona, this ethnic group here, people of Hispanic origin, have an educational attainment level that's not near the national average, yet is going to be the majority of the population. Well, it's kind of work that out or die. Those are your choices. It's the big Achilles heel of Arizona. It's got to be worked out. This is a little bit about how we changed enrollment at ASU. Everything that's not gray means a person of non-European origin, ethnically. This tells us something about the change of ASU. Again, this goes to the notion, what I'm talking about now is change. It's like, that's what we were, looking to the left. We weren't diverse. We didn't represent anybody. This was a white, middle-class school that graduated no one. So how many graduated from ASU? Yeah, so we call you guys the survivors. So the graduation rate, the four-year graduation rate in 1987 was 12%. In 2002, it was 28%. It's just under 60% now. Completely transformed institution. Transformed in this way also. At the bottom is family income. So these are families, this is people in the freshman class in 02 gray, 09 maroon, and 018 in gold. Families under 20,000 income, under 40,000 income. Families with more than $400,000 income. So what does this chart tell you? We have a lot more students attending the university as first-year full immersion college students coming from low-income families than we ever could have imagined possible. And they're achieving at levels greater than the institution was ever able to achieve. So I don't want you to think that these kinds of things that we're doing at the university and the way that we're advancing the university is something that's limited to just families from well-off neighborhoods. We also have students from all 50 states. Of the 3,200 census districts of 100,000 people each in the United States, we have students from 3,100 of those census districts at ASU. We have students from every congressional district in the United States here, every neighborhood and every zip code of Arizona. And so this is a very diverse institution, and this student body reflects all of that, and we've seen these kinds of behavior changes. Now, this is first-generation students at ASU. Students like me, I was the first person in my family ever to go to college, and I have siblings that didn't graduate from high school. We got a lot of my family types here. The numbers that I'm talking about, the doubling of the four-year graduation rate, the jobs, the outcomes, are for these kids. We didn't take the standard path of most universities. In fact, there's a really famous American university president that told me when I first took this job, you know what you need to do. If you want to drive up ASU's reputation, which was not stellar among other universities, this was the world's largest party school, here's what you need to do. He said you need to cut out the bottom half of your freshman class. That means your students coming in with B averages. And you need to build a medical school. And you'll be set. You'll be famous. I'll also be stupid and lazy and probably immoral. And so we're not doing that. We're not cutting out the bottom half of anything. We're maintaining the egalitarian admission standards that this university was built on but couldn't perform against. We will maintain those admission standards and we will make this work. And that means then bringing in kids from families that have never gone to college. Now, this is not our online students. This is our on-campus students. And I think our number this year is 25. This is the number fall 18. I think fall 19, we're at 25. And this doesn't include our 12,000 community college transfer students. We're now graduating more students from ASU that start at the community college per year than we did in any previous 20-year time frame combined. And that's not these kids. These are first-year kids coming out of high school directly to the university. What does this tell you? That means we've taken care of the financial issues. It means we've taken care of finding them. Now, you know Arizona has a weakness. We have one of the lowest college going rates in the country, 46th. 68% of the people that graduate from high school in Arizona aren't automatically qualified to go to the public universities. Like they're not qualified. Now, we think that we can affect all of that by finding ways to work with you all. This is the old design that most of us have operated under our entire life. I graduated from high school eons ago in 1973, June 1st, 1973. Fantastic day. I was wearing my shorts under there and my orange shirt and came from my lifeguard job. It was a fun life. And so this is the old world. Basically, the way that things worked, you on the top one, you'll do pre-K in your family or wherever, your church, wherever. You'll go K-12, you'll do your career. You'll do the same thing, K-12, then you'll go to technical school, then you'll do your career. Or you'll go to the university and you might get an undergraduate degree, you might get a graduate degree, and then you'll go to your career. And that's it. Well, that's weird, because the world doesn't even work that way anymore. It doesn't work that anymore. You have to keep learning or you're not going to make it. If you don't finish high school, I don't even have this on the list. God help you. Which means that's our assignment. That's our assignment. So the new system is something like this, the way that we're looking at it. Pre-K. Pre-K is what we call verbally and conceptually empowered learner coming out of step 1, pre-K. Somehow, and we've got a lot going on in these spaces ourselves, you better get the kid to the highest possible vocabulary by 48 months. By whatever means necessary, you got to enable this learner as best you can. Verbally and conceptually empowered learner, so that when the kid shows up into your operations, the K through 12 operations, they've at least got a fighting chance to understand what's going on. Then in your operations, you all are preparing what we call the fully prepared learner. A person graduating from high school after going through middle school who's fully prepared to continue this learning process. I can't begin to tell you enough how it is not like this anymore. And then some of those kids coming out of step 2, out of you guys, out of K-12, some of them will now go to the technical schools. Some will take other pathways. They'll go to work. They'll go to the military. They'll do something. Our system has not respected this process enough. We've made colleges and universities in some ways more important than they should be, because you should be able to go on any one of these 3 paths and then move back and forth throughout your life whenever you want. Maybe you want to go to college when you're 28. Maybe you want to go to college a little bit. Maybe you don't want a degree. Maybe you want to do this or run your family business and you need some training in this or this or this. And so what we have done here is we've conceptually figured out how to open up the university. How to open it up. So in the middle, us there, universities and colleges, just talking now about ASU, is we're trying to figure out how to interact with you all better, moving downstream with every asset that we have to work with you, and then moving upstream, how to deal with full-time students that come as freshmen, how to deal with online students that come as adults, how to deal with retired learners. We're building a 400 apartment dormitory down here for people older than 65. And they're all moving in to be learners and teachers, both. So we're rethinking everything. That's why we have the ages across the bottom. So whatever we think of as in the past, about retirement and all that, that's all going away. We're not going to sustain a system where you're retiring at 65 and then someone's going to pay you for the rest of your life until you die. Are you kidding me? We're going to be bankrupt soon. That isn't going to be happening. And it's not going to be what people want to do anyway. Because it used to be you retire for 4 years and then you're dead. Now you're like 92 and you're wondering, well, what happened to the last 27 years that I haven't been working? I got bored with golf when I was like 71. I really wished I could have done these other things, but I didn't go to college 70 years ago. And even if I went to college 70 years ago, it doesn't make any difference because I don't know anything about this or this or this or this or this. So we just had a company come to us called Salesforce. It's a huge software company. They have 1.5 million students in a program that they call Trailhead. Anybody heard of Trailhead? 1.5 million students that are they're learning artificial intelligence programming, they're learning coding, they're learning every software skill imaginable. Some are college graduates, some aren't. Guess what they've now come back and said? Our kids are sick of this. They want to know why they're doing this. Do you have philosophy courses that you can teach to our kids? Do you have English courses that you can teach to our kids? This is coming from them. We're in round 3 of these meetings. Everything is changing. So how do we then take 1.5 million workers working in companies supported by Salesforce software who are basically techno geeks? Because if you think that you just produce a software coder and that's it, job done, forget it, because even they're going to be replaced by higher and higher and higher order functions. And so we think this is the way the world's going. Now to do that, we decided to evolve our universal learning initiative. forge industry partners so that we could get every little bugger technology that you could possibly imagine and embed it in ASU. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these technologies. We have 15 educational technology companies that are driving their technology through us, testing it with us right now as startup ventures. Trying to give you some sense. We can do these kinds of things. You guys can't do these things. We're able to do these things because of the nature of the institution. Secondly, develop technology to advance and scale personalized learning. Personalized learning means the following. I went to 17 schools before I graduated from high school. I went to 4 high schools in 3 states in the 10th grade. And I went back and forth between one of them more than once in the 10th grade. 3 weeks here, 8 weeks there, 6 weeks there. It was fun. Missouri, Illinois, and Maryland, really close together places. And so, if I'd only had a way to do personalized learning, I think I could have really greatly enhanced my capabilities. But I didn't. So I'd go to one teacher, and then this teacher, and then this school, and this school, and this school, and school. Like I came out of there, I don't even know, I still to this day struggle with what is a comma. What is the number 8? I'm not joking. I mean, so there's like gaps in my brain that I've had to spend a lot of time working on because there was no personalized learning process. Create new pathways to expedite learning. I talked already about Math 117, freshman math, college algebra, problem solving. I don't know, when are we going to deploy the BioSpine? When will it be ready? January. So the 8 courses. So we've spent millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of person hours building an entire college level curriculum, parts of which could be a high school level curriculum, because there's very little difference in many ways at the sort of 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th grade. Complete personalized learning through the entirety of what it takes to be a biologist. Teaching you everything that you don't know, everything that you should have learned in the 3rd grade, everything you should have learned in the 5th grade but you didn't learn, tying it all back together, relentlessly tutoring you tirelessly 24 hours a day if necessary until you master these subjects. That's done. Deployed in January. We've already done pre-calculus. We've already done college algebra. We've got about 20 of these adaptive learning platforms, all of which you'll learn have applicability to high school students and middle school students. And then lastly, reimagine delivery models. How do we work in different ways to augment the teachers that you all have together? None of this, by the way, is about teacher replacement. None of this is about workforce deployment reductions. It's nothing about that at all. This is about student success. This is about social success, taking graduation rates where you're really disappointed that your graduation rate was 98%. You're really tremendously disappointed that your math achievement level was 92%. You just are beside yourself that your reading comprehension levels are 99% and not 100%. You're really sad that every single student that graduated from your high school didn't go on to a post-secondary certificate process, either in a technical school, a military school, an associate's degree from a community college, or an undergraduate degree from a university. Now you'll say, how is this even possible? All of these things are possible. And again, we've waited for a long time to have this meeting to say that I'm not saying this is theoretically possible. It's completely possible, doable, deployable now. Right now, we're working across this entire curriculum, this entire continuum, lifelong learners, all the things we've got going on, working with every kind of student. We have thousands of students on a college pathway program that aren't qualified to go to university. Thousands. Earning their way into the university. High school dropouts earning their way into colleges. All these things are going on because we found a way to blend all of this together. And we'll get you all this slide presentation. So, you're going to hear from our fabulous team running ASU Prep Digital, where high school and college convert. In fact, even the name high school, college, like what is that? What we really need is it's all just about advanced learning, where we're working together. Some students are moving at light speed, other kids are snails, other kids can't get out of bed, other kids are having problems with drugs or problems at home, and they got parents that are abandoning them, and everything that you can possibly imagine. We now have the tools, the mechanisms, and the devices to connect to them. to connect in different ways. And this ASU Prep Digital, completely financed by us and philanthropy. By the way, back to our $3.5 billion budget, the state of Arizona only invests 9% of that. All the rest comes from ideas, partnerships, alliances, competing, which means through partnerships between us, we all benefit together. So really what I wanted to do was to lead up to that as an outgrowth or an outcome of who we are, and what we hope we can do with you all. And so all we're interested in is measured improvement in student success, measured improvement in high school graduation rate, measured improvement in learning outcomes, measured improvement in post-secondary certificates. Those are our only objectives. And so we have collected, raised, spent. I'll give you one example. So we're spending $40 million a year just on our little team that does this stuff. And so why do we do that? We do that because we think Arizona benefits from this. We think we benefit from this. We think the institutions that we're connected with benefit from this. And so you're going to hear from others about ASU Prep Digital, but I just wanted to give you the foundation of where this is coming from, the spirit of where it's coming from. So this notion of, in fact, I would say that the performance for public K through 12 education and the performance for public higher education, one peaked 50 years ago and one peaked 40 years ago, which means they've done fantastic things and achieved great things, but not what we need going forward. So we basically have stepped back and completely redesigned the university in the ways that I've talked about, and have capabilities that we didn't have even 5 years ago, and are capable of doing things that we couldn't do, and now we can do these things. And so what my hope is that we can get about the business of making Arizona the exemplar place that used innovation to change educational outcomes, and as a result, we were more ready for social and economic opportunity going forward. That's all that drives us. And so the team that you've got here today is ready to talk about what we're doing, how we're doing it, how it works. We have now embedded college credit courses in all of our deployable digital high school assets. So we're talking about being able to work with the AP level student who's racing off at 1,000 miles an hour, as well as the kid who needs adaptive learning platforms because they're falling behind. Or the kid who's just a regular high school kid who just wants to get through high school with all of the complexities of that. So that's my presentation. And I have to race off, but I hope that you get a sense of what we're doing. And let me just say one last thing for those of you how many of you are high school folks, and how many are middle school? How many are high school folks? And how many are middle school folks? How many are something else? Yeah. And so, just a small thing about ASU. So, no matter what you hear, there are no barriers for attendance or completion at Arizona State University. So if you know of kids that are struggling for whatever reason, if you know of kids that really should be at the university or whatever, you have to let us know. And we make adjustments we will spend this year of our own earned revenue $500 million on financial aid for kids that can't pay. Just process that for a second. That means that we're running the university at a level of efficiency that we have a $500 million margin that we can invest in financial aid. All of this helped us to do that. So, I got to go. But nice to see everybody, and thank you for being here.